Caravella Coffee Talks are back, a space created to speak with thought leaders, to exchange knowledge, and share perspectives.
In these talks, the relationship building team invites you to attend sessions with female leaders in the industry.
We will hear about their aha moments, life lessons, breakthroughs, and how we can make coffee better together.
Over the years, we have seen how the representation of women in the industry has gained traction and has flourished. Join us for some inspiration.
Hello, my name is Marisabel, Vasquez, Marketing Manager at Caravella.
Hi, my name is Sofía, Narvaéz, Relationship Builder at Caravella.
This is our last episode of the season, and we are honored to bring you another amazing and thoughtful conversation on empowerment and equality. It has been such an exciting journey where we have been joined by women leaders in the coffee industry over the past few months. We close with an interview that makes us think about how companies, especially roasters, can partner with organizations that work on the ground to help create farm associations, cooperatives, and other coffee businesses in general where there is more equity and diversity.
Yes, thanks to all the amazing coffee professionals that shared their stories and work. In this final episode, we spoke with Kimberly Easson. She is the founder and CEO of the Partnership for Gender Equity, PGE, a not-for-profit social enterprise focused on improving equity and sustainability along coffee and cocoa supply chains. She has worked for 30 years in agricultural supply chains and development in more than 20 countries around the globe.
Let's hear from Kimberly. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Caravella Coffee Talks, Women Make Coffee Better. And we are delighted to have today a very special guest in our last episode of this season. We hope to come back again in another season with some more inspirational talks. But for now, this is our last episode, and we are very happy to have this closure with Kimberly Easson. Yeah, we Ana Sofía and I in this call, we are part of the marketing team, and we regularly receive specific requests of women coffee producers and all, but actually we get to read all these stories of all the different coffee growers behind each lot that we sell. All this coffee have a behind the scenes, which involves not only the person, the name of the person who sells the coffee, but also many different people, young people included, women included, men included, family members, and it's actually a collaborative and joint efforts to produce a 1 lot or 1 kilogram even of coffee. So Kimberly have done amazing job in gender equity and promoting and encouraging and empowering genders along not only the coffee but also the cocoa industry. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here and excited for this conversation. So thanks so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Let's start with a brief introduction about yourself. For those who don't know who Kimberly is, please tell us.
Oh, well, it's very fitting that behind me I have a picture of coffee in Costa Rica, because I got started in a very serendipitous way working in coffee 30 years ago, actually starting early 1992, believe it or not. I was thinking probably your ages back then. I got started in Costa Rica, and I had no idea that I was going to work in coffee when I went to Costa Rica, but I was looking for something to do to beef up my resume and to gain some more professional experience. And I ended up stumbling upon Cafe Grit, which many of you may know. It's now an international chain, whereas before it was just in Costa Rica. When I was there, it was a very small little business. And so having the chance to work in Costa Rica in coffee in my early days in the coffee sector, that really gave me a foundation for what I saw possible in coffee, being able to learn Spanish and speak Spanish fluently, which back 30 years ago was not quite so common. I think it's really great today. There are a lot of people, both people that around the world that speak English, and then of course in the US, more and more people that speak different languages, especially in coffee, that people that speak Spanish and Portuguese, and that really helps to strengthen the alliances along the supply chain. But so I got my start 30 years ago, and it's been quite a journey. It's been an exciting time. There's always something new in coffee. You never feel like you've learned everything, because you just can't. And it's a great way for me to connect the important issues that we face as humanity, human beings, the struggle and the desire for peace and for harmony, and for people having dignified lives, and where they can prosper and live decently. And that's always been my hope and my drive in working in coffee, is that we really can have a coffee sector that works for everyone, that really gives a meaningful living for those who want to be involved in the sector.
I love that you mentioned the human part, because at the end, coffee is not made by plants or by farms. It's made by people. It's people all over. And tell us a little bit about Partnership for Gender Equity. When was it created, and why was it created?
The Partnership for Gender Equity, we started actually as a project underneath the Coffee Quality Institute, the umbrella of the Coffee Quality Institute. And I was on the staff at CQI, and my role was to expand partnerships within CQI, and also bring in new resources for the organization. And one of the things that I realized early on was that in development work that CQI has been involved in, so programs sponsored, that if you didn't have a strategic approach to gender in your proposals that you're putting forth to these organizations, that your proposal would very likely get sidelined. And so what we decided to do was, first and foremost, conduct research, because at that point in time, there really wasn't a lot known about why gender equity was an important topic in the coffee sector. Certainly the International Women's Coffee Alliance existed then. I was actually one of the original co-founders of IWCA, 16-17 years ago now. And but what we kept hearing at CQI was a kind of a question about, okay, well, sure, women in coffee, gender equity, okay, what does that mean, and why is it important, and what's the business case? And so we conducted research early on, starting in 2014, and we actually had our very first workshop in Colombia, in Popayan. And the idea was really to get an understanding of, okay, what's happening? What does happen in coffee farming families? What are the roles of women and men, and of course, young people, children in households? And what are the challenges that, especially that women face in the coffee sector, and how might we be able to create, again, a coffee sector that brings benefits to everyone? Because what the research indicates is that, sadly, we're not bringing benefits to everyone, to every member of the household. And there's a lot of issues with regards to culture, of course. There are just general barriers for women in terms of access to resources and training, that there's a real opportunity for us to address in the coffee sector. And so that's why we got started with the Partnership for Gender Equity. We really wanted to look at coffee as a family business, right? As you both well know, and really start to educate the industry in a way that could drive meaningful change.
What is the role of men and women in coffee growing?
I think one of the challenges is the sector is there's not a lot of data that's being collected. There's more now than there was back in 2014 and 2015 when we first did the research, but there's actually not a lot of how we term sex disaggregated data. And even something interesting that we see is there's often only like one line, or if you go to a farm, okay, whose farm is this? There's only one line. So, and typically, as you well know, the land is in the hand of the man. And so that's going to be who shows up on that one line. And so I think, a really great, maybe relatively easy opportunity is, okay, we should probably have at least 2 lines, or maybe there's a way to also reflect that this farm is, there's more than one person that is, plays an important role on the farm, even if they don't necessarily own the land. So there is a place for the name of the woman to show up, or if the land is owned by the woman, very likely her husband does help, so that we have both names in terms of how we are looking at ownership, how we are looking at participation, and then collecting data related to who does what on the farm, and are the benefits of the farming business actually coming back to different members of the farming household.
Recently, a couple of years ago, did the change in the brochures of the coffee that we sell, and with those brochures that we send to our customers, where it's producers and then producer and partner, where both names are on there, and sometimes that's short for the actual work that it's on the farm, because most of the times it's much more than 2 names.
Right. So. Yeah, but that's a great step, and I think the fact that you did that a couple of years ago really demonstrates that you're thinking about these things in a very proactive way, which isn't always the case.
I also think that it's interesting when, not interesting, but also we can do it when we tell the story by adding the partner's name, because of land ownership rights, the women's name are not there. But I'm thinking about some workers that are key at the farm as well, and that farmers oftentimes do recognize and say, he is the person in charge. He is the one leading maybe this process or experiment. And maybe when you get to talk to the farmers, they do recognize other people. But when we just look at the legal paperwork, it'll only be one name. Mm-hmm. So we can change the way we include people when we tell the stories.
Well, gender equity, as we've mentioned, is key to healthy families and development of the coffee consuming and producing countries. Which has been your focus area of PGE, and maybe a bigger question, why coffee and cocoa industry? Why both of these industries?
Yeah, well, with coffee sought after around the world, that it's a way to convey a message, because as you said, Marisabel, early on, coffee is not just about what shows up in your cup. It's just not just about the cherry, but it's about a whole way of life, many hands that touch the coffee before it gets to the coffee cup, and how can we actually shine the spotlight on who the different, what are the different issues, and what we as coffee lovers can actually do to make a difference. And that's one of the things I've always found the most compelling and exciting about coffee, is the chance to do something meaningful, to make a difference. There's a lot of similarities with cocoa in terms of there's also that way to communicate, using a product to communicate, because also people that love chocolate, there's mainstream chocolate, but then there's also a lot of specialty chocolate, and ways to use chocolate as a means to communicate about some of these really important global issues, like gender equity. They are tropical crops. They're grown in very similar kinds of areas. You will see different issues in terms of some of the more challenging issues in cocoa. Maybe we don't see as much in coffee. So child labor, of course, is an issue in both crops, but in cocoa it's much more severe, especially in the West African context. And in coffee we have other things that are distinct from cocoa. But in many ways, the supply chains themselves, there is a lot of similarities. And the work that we're doing, gender equity, of course, is a cross-cutting issue. It's not something that's just important in farming countries, but of course, we have not solved, we don't have gender equity here in this country, and maybe we're even going a little bit backwards right now. And even in places like Scandinavia, no one has closed the gender gap. And so globally, there still is an opportunity. And in both coffee and cocoa, there are significant opportunities to make a difference for farming families around the world, and especially for farming women and their families.
The cocoa industry or supply chain can learn from coffee and vice versa, if there's anything that one industry can learn from the other, speaking from farm level to consuming, like from end to end.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of the big differences in coffee and cocoa, at least to date, has been there are many smaller and medium-sized companies in coffee. So like the whole specialty coffee boom that happens, I mean, it's still happening, but of course, really more in the around 2000, since 2000. That really is now just starting to happen in cocoa. You have a lot more direct trade cocoa companies, direct relationships, doing more direct sourcing type sustainability programs in cocoa that maybe had been started years ago in coffee. So I think there's definitely something to learn from coffee for cocoa. And then it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure there are things to learn in that coffee can learn from cocoa.
And tell us a little bit more about the Gender Equity Index. Around 500 million small-scale farmers grow 70% of the world's food crops, yet this still is quite invisible. There's quite invisible actors in the supply chains. What is the Gender Equity Index, and why is it an important and valuable tool for this collecting this data and understanding?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the Gender Equity Index is a relatively new initiative for the Partnership for Gender Equity. And when COVID started, we had the good fortune of having a new colleague join the PGE team, Greg Minahan, who many of you know, many of those who will be watching today. And he and I started talking about the issue of gender and looking at PGE's work to that point, which was very much focused on smallholder coffee cooperatives. And so, but recognizing that work is really important and was having a positive impact on those communities and on those organizations. And yet PGE's ambition has always been big. Like we really want to transform the sector so that it can work for everyone. And so if we want to have that kind of a big impact, we have to look at different places in the supply chain. And so what we started looking at was this $500 million that's invested annually in coffee sustainability programming around the world. Is that being delivered gender equitably? And we conducted research in this past spring, and what we saw is that even though there's awareness and interest on the topic of gender equity, most service providers don't really know what to do about it. And when I say a service provider, I mean Caravella, for example. You buy coffee and you provide services. There are larger trading companies, of course, like Ecom and Olam, Sukafina, those organizations. There are development agencies that are implementing projects. Are those projects done in a gender equitable way? Sometimes, but still there's a long way to go. There's the Colombian Coffee Federation and all of the government level agencies around the world. Are they able to deliver services in a gender equitable way? And so we know that this issue is of critical importance in the coffee sector, but yet there haven't really been tools to be able to help inform and guide how companies work and how to improve the way that services are delivered. So essentially the Gender Equity Index is a diagnostic tool. It builds on the tool that we had created for farmer organizations. So we have a tool for farmer organizations, and now we have a tool just fresh off the press. And you all have been already involved in the validation of that tool. But the idea is that measuring the capacity of a service provider like Caravella to deliver services in a gender equitable way. So what do we mean by that, right? It's, you know, have you done a gender analysis of who are the people that you're delivering services to? Who are the people in that household? What are the roles that they're doing? How do they best learn? What kinds of things do they need to be trained on? For women in particular, are they able to get to the place where the training is being offered? Is it offered in the right time of day? Things like that really can influence whether or not all of the investment dollars that Caravella is making are actually able to reach those women, and not only reach the women, but then do they benefit? Can they actually benefit these women? And then ultimately our goal, at least for the Partnership for Gender Equity, and we would hope the industry wide, that we really also are looking at empowerment. We're looking at empowerment and transformation of these contexts that are very much a barrier to the well-being of farming women and their families and communities. And the key is, and this is what we're finding, even with the farmer organizations too, that it isn't so much this initial score that you're getting. So right, you take the diagnostic and you get a report back, and there's a score with a spider graph and a number of recommendations. The priority, at least first and foremost right now, is what are you planning to do with those recommendations? So as you said, then you all get to choose where you think you can make the biggest difference and then prioritize those actions. And essentially, it's getting on a path towards greater gender equity, recognizing that you don't flip a switch one day to the next. Today we're not gender equitable, tomorrow we will be. No, it really is this journey that's going to take some time. And the key is, you using the PECA program as an example, you're already providing really valuable services. So how can you best improve or shift some of the ways that you're working to make sure that those valuable services are reaching and benefiting and empower the women that are in your supply chains?
I think this also brings to the table the fact that we can start like analyzing our own way of implementing projects, thinking about them, but not just from top to down, but how our team, how producers can also think when they get together, when they decide, like, let's get women or younger people a space to also share their experiences and invalidate, their participation, like make it something that is just as common and not like isolated cases, right? And the other thing is just being accountable. Like all companies, Caravella included, we can learn. We don't have all the answers. So doing the analysis help us close the gap in terms of knowledge as well, like how we can turn all these great initiatives and ideas and how can we best use the resources that we have, like for short term, but also long term as an industry. If we all get together on the same page, we can have a greater impact instead of just working like on different goals or different ideas. That of course is valuable. We need that too, but just how we can just make it bigger, right? Continue the conversation on the diagnostic tool for farmers organization. Maybe for the people that don't know much about it, how can actors in the supply chain engage? What will be maybe the first steps to learning about it? How can it benefit maybe roasters, exporters, and of course farmers, right? But how can we engage?
With the producer organization index, one of the decisions that we made last year was we didn't want to just give out a diagnostic tool, have farmers take the test, and then get a report back, and then not be able to do anything with it. That's always a concern and a challenge with any organization, right? You get reports and then you get busy, and then you don't necessarily take the time to put in place an action plan. And so with the farmer organizations, we've actually created our a learning journey for farmer organizations. So far, it's just been virtual, with the exception of work we did in the Democratic Republic of Congo over the past year. And but the idea with that is we invite farmer organizations to participate. We invite them to choose 2 to 4 participants that can participate in this 10-week journey, and we walk through what are the assumptions that people have about gender equity. What are the existing perspectives that both men and women have about gender equity? Really trying to get everybody on the same page at a starting point, and also to understand, why is it important? Like, what is the opportunity for a farmer organization to be more gender equitable? What are the domains of gender equity for a farmer organization? And those domains for farmer organizations have to do with the kinds of strategies and policies that they have. Like, is there a gender policy in place? What about membership and participation? Is there a way for women to participate as members in a farmer organization? And leadership and decision making. What is the composition at the board level of male versus female, and other key decision making committees within the organization itself, and even at the General Assembly level? And then we also look at attitudes and behaviors. Is the farmer organization taking action to provide some trainings that would sensitize both men and women about the issue of gender, and how to start to kind of shift our preconceived notions. And then finally, service delivery, similar to what we were talking about with the gender equity index for the service providers, are the services that a cooperative offers, are they able to actually reach, benefit, and empower women in those households as well?
What have been, because these are great questions, right? And like you said, it has been like a virtual learning experience, and also like self-analyzing how the farmer organizations are set up, and where could they make a change maybe in the next term, where they elect the board or the participants, right? What has been kind of a notable change that you have seen with this farmers organization, maybe in terms of communication, or things that have been taken from the learning journey to action?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few things. Definitely what we know and hear from farmer organizations is when they understand that any issue is important at the market level, then they will start to prioritize and take it more seriously. Of course, it always helps when there's resources attached. So, quality premiums, for example. Okay, you want quality and you're going to pay me for it? Okay, we'll do these things that you're asking us to do. It's also similar with gender equity, at least right now, where farmers are on a learning curve. They recognize the importance of it, but they're also stretched with many priorities. And so when they hear from the industry that it's important, and that also the industry might be willing to invest in some of their efforts, that really helps to drive change. We have now 14 organizations that are with us in a phase 2 of our learning journey, and they're now creating gender policies or improving the gender policies that they've had in place. And they are also creating a women's leadership training program that they will then implement. And then I think the biggest impact has been for the nearly 50 farmer organizations that have participated so far, is just that they have a clear sense as to how they're doing, right? Marisabel, you mentioned something similar for Caravella. Like you have this snapshot of okay, here's where we're doing okay, and here are the places where we're falling short. And then you have a sort of a menu of options that then you can prioritize in an action plan. So now these organizations have action plans in place. And back to your question, Ana Sofia, about, how can the industry engage, is that all of these pharma organizations have a profile up on our platform. It's our Buyer Supplier Alliance. And so the idea is that a roaster who's interested in this issue of gender equity can see which pharma organizations have participated so far, learn a little bit about them as an organization, where they're located, what's the altitude where they're producing coffee, how many members they have, and then also look at their action plan. And these are really simple action plans. We created them to be simple because, obviously roasters have many priorities and many things that they're thinking about, and they're not going to dig through a 10-page action plan of a farmer cooperative, right? They want to know, okay, what are your priorities and how can we help? And so that's exactly what these action plans are, is 3 priorities based on needs, 3 needs that the farmer organizations have identified, a timeline, and a budget. And so the idea is like, okay, great. We want to invest in gender equity. Here's an existing farmer organization partner in Caldas and Rio Sucio, Colombia, for example, and they want to do a masculinities training. Okay, great. It costs $1,500. Okay, let's include that in our next contract through our importer partner, and fund that work for the farmer organization. So that's essentially the way that we see the opportunity for these better connections, and for roasters of any size to be able to invest in gender equity because it's a value to the roaster and to the market.
This is a great invitation for anyone, really, not just in terms of supporting like gender equity projects, but I see it as well as like education, transforming really communities, changing people's culture towards gender, or how we include just capable people in different roles in rural communities, and especially in this case, coffee producing communities, right? So I think when roasters invest in this type of projects and learn more, when roasters are investing in this type of projects, they're not only investing in one community, they might be changing like a whole town. Because when good things happen, farmers are the first to share their experiences. And it's just the same when bad things happen, right? So what's the impact that we want to create? So to any roaster listening to this, visit the website, learn more about the projects. I'm sure there'll be amazing opportunities for you to join. And for other exporters as well, right? It's not limited to roasters. I have one question, and it's maybe not necessarily that related to your organization, but women's role has changed over the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and we all have like different experiences when it comes to gender equity and women's participation in the industry at the consuming level and also at the production side of coffee. So what will you tell yourself or your younger self when you first started in coffee? What will you have liked to know when you just learned or maybe realized, oh, coffee is what I want to focus on for the next years of my career journey?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a really meaningful question, I think, for all of us to consider, right? I mean, what is it that that makes our journey in coffee or in whatever we're doing the most meaningful? I think one of the things that I've learned is that wherever I have traveled in coffee and whoever I've spoken with, like, we all have so much more in common than we have that's different. And so we might come from different countries, we might speak different languages, we might look different. But in reality, the hopes and aspirations that we all share are related. They're very much the same, about wanting, especially in a farming family, like that we want the best for our children, our grandchildren. We want a healthy planet. And so I think really just as much as you can speak, but to listen, like to talk, to have a conversation, to create a conversation, and really just, focus on the listening to learn something, like what's coming really from that other person, and what might it be like to be in their shoes. And that's, of course, facilitated by speaking another language. I think one of the things that really helped me along my path was being able to speak Spanish, and really putting myself in the shoes of a smallholder farmer. I mean, of course, I don't live that reality, and I can never fully understand, but really listening to people with an empathetic ear and trying to understand what are their core concerns, what do they really care about, what do they aspire to, and how might coffee be an avenue for them to achieve those things. And for the most part, in the many conversations, it's about family, it's about community, it's about making a difference for other people. And I think I would also, for my younger self, and I think especially being a woman in this field, is not holding back on speaking your own truth. I think women, at least for me, and I think still, but it's different for every person, but that we're taught to be kind and nice and accommodating, like the nice. It's not, kindness is really important, but the being nice, and that we often are put in positions where we feel like we need to accommodate everyone else. And that if you have a vision and something that you want to make happen in the world in terms of, your own commitment or what you see possible through coffee, like how to really ensure that as a woman that you speak that voice, and you have the strength to speak up to people that are different. Especially oftentimes I think it is hard for women to speak to men, and for men potentially to listen to women, and vice versa. And so, how can we all kind of speak that truth, and find ways to really collaborate and connect around this fantastic beverage that we all love and really care about. And as we've said many times in this conversation, really the heart of it being the human side, and that without people, we don't have coffee. Without environment, we don't have coffee. But who takes care of who takes care of the environment? It's the people, right? So really always reflecting that the human side, first and foremost, is critical.
I totally relate, especially because when you say speak up, right? And also for us as women to create spaces where opinions can be heard and can be shared without any issue. Just like having the opportunity to speak up is really valuable for anyone who wants to grow, who wants to learn, who wants to share their thoughts and ideas. And like people say, no idea is bad, so let's hear them all.
Mm-hmm. 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 There is an incredible wisdom in what everyone has to say. And as you're pointing out, for so long, women have not had a seat at the table, or if they've had a seat at the table, they're outnumbered, and they're not necessarily, their voices are not solicited or listened to. And so, but it does leave behind this really critical wisdom and perspective that is so valuable and so important, especially as we're grappling with these vast sustainability issues, conservation and food security and climate. Women have really, they're at the heart of the household and the farm, and so their experiences and their learning and their knowledge and their wisdom is critical to help us resolve and find solutions to these critical issues we're facing.
Women are often the driving force behind many coffee families as well. It's true.
And one of the things with that I have been thinking about a lot lately, and we talk about often with the Partnership for Gender Equity, is with smallholder farming households and farms, it's really like the household is like the back office, right? So if you think about a small business, the front office, the retail shop doesn't function without what's happening in the back office, right? And so the family farm cannot function without what's happening at the household level. And so the more that there's that recognition of the work at the household, and which is typically done by the woman, the farm is not going to be successful. And so we have to be able to really acknowledge the value of the work that happens both on the farm and in the household, and the different members of the family, including the women.
Or how can people reach out to you, and where can people go to learn more about the previous work that you have done? Maybe partner, like look through the options that there are available.
Well, I'm always available. My email is kimberly@genderandcoffee.org. We also have a general mailbox, which is connect@genderandcoffee.org. There's a lot of information on the website. You'll see information about the Gender Equity Index, who are the partners involved so far, so including Caravella but other partners as well. There's information about the virtual learning journeys. So if a company wants to invest in a learning experience for their farmer organization partners, they can find more details there. The Buyer Supplier Alliance is actually on a different platform, which is equalorigins.org. And so any company can go in there and sign up and look for farmer organizations that have been part of our program so far. And we welcome companies to sponsor a farmer organization, to invest in the work of those farmer organizations, because more and more it's being recognized as a priority, and farmer organizations do want to take action. And so they're eager to hear from and also connect with partners in the market. So yeah, would love to continue to be in touch. And I'm just so grateful for the conversation, and congratulations to you both for the work that you're doing. And also, obviously, you have important voices inside of Caravella, and Caravella's doing great work, and we're thrilled to have Caravella as a partner and look forward to doing more together.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. We're going to leave all the links and the websites available for anyone who wants to learn more, check out, reach out to Kimberly. Don't miss this opportunity, right, to learn more about this important work. And I think this is a collective effort, right? We, from our positions and maybe opportunities, resources, we can work together to close the gap that exists at consuming countries and producing countries as well.
Yeah. Well said. And you can just imagine if every company had a snapshot of, okay, how are we doing with regards to gender equity, where we are, and then said, oh, great, here are our opportunities, and we all get on this path towards being more gender equitable, whatever our role within the supply chain. If we all just commit to getting on that path and taking action, you could really start to envision in 5 years where we could be. And that could really be a significant difference for coffee farming women, their families, and communities around the world. So
I do so much better.
Everyone to, yeah.
Like we say, let's make coffee happier, tastier, better, for producers, safer, for producers, roasters, and everyone in between.
Exactly. Yeah. Here. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you for listening our last episode and for joining us throughout this season. We hope that you have found these conversations very inspiring.
And if you missed any of our earlier episodes, they're all available on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, as well as your YouTube channel.
See you on the next season of Caravella Coffee Talks, and stay tuned for more amazing conversations. And
thank you for joining us.